Mike, thanks for joining me here today on the floor TCT 2024.
Pleasure, thank you.
And it's great to see Shifamed right over my shoulder there, right? You got the whole squad here.
We're right in the neighborhood.
So tell me about Tioga Cardiovascular and the technology and the market it's serving.
Yeah, so we're a transcatheter mitral valve replacement company. And it's obviously a very high profile market. And our market is kind of divided into repair and replacement. We're on the replacement side of things. Mitral regurgitation is our disease state. It's the largest heart valve problem that's in mankind, basically. Very much underserved, and so we're coming up with a lower profile system to basically go after that market.
It's been an incredible, you pointed out, I think it's 4 times the aortic, the size of the aortic opportunity.
Yep.
It's been an incredibly challenging market to recruit on. It's a challenging market from a competitive landscape. Yep. And driving trials just seems, other than MitraClip, nobody's really slayed that market yet.
Right.
What's your perspective on that?
Yeah, I think there's a couple things. One is the patients are very difficult to treat. I mean, these are, as compared to aortic stenosis patients really only have one thing wrong with them, and that's the aortic valve. Mitral valve regurgitation patients typically have heart failure, and they have a lot of things wrong with them, and they're very sick, low ejection fraction. So number one is the patients are very, very sick. Number two is the anatomy is very variable. It's not a simple tube that you drop a aortic valve into. This is actually, the mitral valve itself is shaped kind of like a saddle, and it's very much dynamic, and so it's very hard to land a device there. And so finally, the thing that probably saddles a lot of our competitors is that a lot of the devices are very bulky, and they block like the left ventricular outflow tract, or they're too small for the large annuli that commonly happen in mitral regurgitation patients. So all these things have combined to actually form a lot of exclusions during trials. So if you talk to a lot of physicians, the frustration is they can refer 20 patients to a trial and maybe they get 1 patient out of that. So part of our competitive advantage that we're trying to go after is trying to make a device that actually fits into more anatomies and more patients, basically. It's about patient access is really what it comes down to.
And you had mentioned one of the key characteristics of the valve was a low profile valve.
Yeah.
How does that compare to others in the marketplace today, and even the platinum standard, which you can call the MitraClip?
Yeah, so, but in TMVR, we don't worry so much about, I mean, the repair devices don't worry so much about low profile because they're approaching things a little bit differently, but some of our competitors have very long valves that stick very deeply into the left ventricle. So ours is we have about 14 millimeters into the left ventricle, which is basically amongst the shortest of any of the valves that are currently in clinical trials. So we've really endeavored to make as short a valve as possible. So, yeah.
And does that make it easier for the interventionalist for the procedure?
Yeah, so it really comes down to screening. So the workflow in a TMVR, for a TMVR company, and Tioga's no different in this respect, is that we typically take start with an echo, then a CT scan, and we do a 3-dimensional rendering of the CT scan, and you put a virtual valve in this sort of 3-dimensional environment using some software, and you make sure that the valve actually fits. So when we talk about trial fallout, and that's really where it occurs, usually in screening. So this all happens before the patient hits the table. And so when it comes to the actual procedure itself, the things that actually really help the physician are our delivery system is smaller. We have a 28 French delivery system as opposed to some of the larger delivery systems. And we have a valve that is very centrally focused. So it's kind of 2 parts of it. There's a procedure, and then there's also the screening, which we have basically are working on both ends of the spectrum.
And you've got activity in that area right now in first in human, right?
You do, yeah. We've done some cases, and we're super excited about it. We're just getting started, so we've got a road in front of us. But yes, we're making good progress.
And Shifamed at large, I believe, has maybe 5 or 6 different companies in trials right now.
Yep.
And it's been pretty prolific in its approach to picking a right industry, picking a solution that maybe isn't a market maker, but certainly a fast follow and a much better product.
Yep.
So this is your second Shifamed company. You exited your first.
Yep.
So what is it about Shifamed that you view it, and maybe your peers view it, as very unique and powerful?
I think I think of it in 2 parts. One is there are very few places in the world really right now where you can do early stage medical device companies. And I think Amr, because he seeds all these from a very early stage, we can actually start things that are much more difficult to start elsewhere. And he seeds and provides the seed capital to kind of get things up and off the ground to the point where they can actually get real venture investment, real serious investment after the seed stage. So that's the first part of it. The second part of it is, once you get through the seed stage, we have the Shifamed model provides a lot of what I would call the back office that normally is kind of expensive to replicate for a individual company, but whether it be HR, IT, finance, accounting, all those are centralized with Shifamed, and it really kind of helps the companies move along more quickly and focus on the things that really build value, which are the engineering, sales and marketing, everything else, manufacturing. And then the company becomes much more portable in an acquisition, in that the acquirers usually don't want the finance and the accounting necessarily, but they're really looking for the engineering, marketing, sales, manufacturing, et cetera. So.
And I've been on campus. While there are other models out there that have the characteristics that you mentioned, where you're sharing the cost of the G&A and the back office stuff, but what Shifamed does unique that I have not seen in my 34 years in device is they're literally turnkey. So you're not also sharing resources for 3D printers. You're not sharing resources for ovens. You're not sharing, it's a literal standalone brick and mortar on that campus there.
Yeah, so very early on with Shifamed, because I've been in a couple of Shifamed companies now, we did a lot of equipment sharing, and we found that it was very inefficient to sort of take a piece of equipment down, recalibrate it, reset it up for another project, and then start back up again. And so it became kind of the source of a little bit of friction sometimes between the companies. We decided that, hey, it makes much more sense for these pieces of equipment to be in the individual manufacturing facilities and get them, and they also tend to be very specific to that company as well. So, and 3D printers now, for the most part, are pretty simple and cheap to operate, right?
Yeah.
So.
And so also there's got to be a good mind share there, because you've got a number of peer CEOs there.
Yeah.
It's murderer's row there, but Shifamed's put together, great CEO bench there. So that's got to be helpful as you think through some challenges as well, right?
For sure. The Shifamed senior staff meets on a weekly basis, and we really talk about what's working, what's not working, what the challenges are, and it's a really nice and great peer group, because you can actually have conversations with that peer group that would really be difficult in other situations, and so that's been really helpful as well.
Yeah, being a CEO is a lonely place. People don't realize that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially on a class 3 device, going into clinicals, raising money, and saying your Hail Marys before you go in, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
So with that, before we close, what's Tioga what are the milestones ahead over the next 12, 24 months for us?
So for Tioga, we're going to continue to be enrolling patients, right? So we're trying to push enrollment. We have a number of centers across the world that we're pushing enrollment in. We're going to be moving into an EFS IDE submission sometime next year. So we've already had some just conversations around that, and there's a lot of preparation going in for that. We have a round that we'll be raising. We need to close by second quarter of next year, and that's really what it is for us. I mean, it's executing on the clinical front and then eventually moving clinical operations to the United States.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And that structural heart space, certainly 2024, the back half of it is looking fabulous relative to what 2023 looked like.
Yeah. I mean, I think we're coming in at a really good time in the marketplace. I mean, as you know, there's a huge amount of acquisitions about 8 to 10 years ago, and then it's kind of dried up in structural heart, at least on the mitral valve side of things more recently. But I think the learnings that have happened in the marketplace in clinical arena, if you will, have really informed kind of the path forward for Tioga, frankly. So.
Yeah, and the natural acquirers are also broadening too.
Yeah. We're
starting to see more and more of the mid-caps and strategics.
For sure.
And these structured deals happen as well. So I think it promises well for you.
Yep.
Well, I appreciate your time.
Well, thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
Thanks.
All right.
I'm Joe Mullings from the floor of TCT 2024. Be well.